I wanted to also welcome you here tonight. My name is Jennifer Seidman, and I am the Director of Community Engagement at Courageous Parents Network. And in my role, I often have the opportunity to interface with a lot of the siblings of the families who come to CPN for support. I myself am also the mother of a medically complex child, and I have two other children. So the sibling experience is also near and dear to my heart. And I know that some of the most critical moments in my own family experience were because I was worried and concerned for my other two children as we were having the journey with my son, Ben. So I'm really happy to have you all here with us tonight to learn and explore the sibling experience. I'm very thankful to our three siblings that have joined us tonight and their willingness to give us their perspective, because the truth of the matter is that they are the experts in this. It is their voices that you've really come here to learn from. And I know I learn something new every time I engage with a different sibling. And so, Wendy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Wendy's joined us. She was here with us in January. So if you missed our round one of our sibling experience event, I would encourage you to go to our events page at courageousparentsnetwork.org, and you can find a recording of that January event on siblings. We also did one in 4 years ago, 2019 or 2020, and on the sibling experience. So you can find a lot more resources. And again, you'll get a follow-up email with a lot of this that's contained. So don't feel like you need to write it down. Okay, thank you, Wendy, for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you.
That's great. Thank you. So I am a psychologist. I work in a children's hospital, and I spend a lot of time working with kids and teenagers who have medical issues, medical diagnoses, as well as psychiatric. But one of my favorite things I do is work with siblings. So I meet with them one-on-one. I meet with parents to guide them around helping siblings adjust as best they can with whatever's going on, and I help run groups for siblings to meet each other. And over the years, I've done research on siblings, but I'm really excited about tonight for the same reasons that Jennifer described, which is I feel privileged to have some brothers and sisters here to talk with us about what their experience is now and their past experiences, because we know every day can be different and can be a combination of things. So I will just be mostly in the background, but helping with framing some questions that we'll present to them so they can tell us more.
Okay, so why don't we get started with introductions? Felix, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Hi, I'm Felix. I'm 15 years old. I'm in grade 9. My family is composed of me, my mom, my dad, and my sister, who sadly passed away about 5 years ago, just before her 7th birthday. Um, she was diagnosed just before her 3rd birthday, and that was a tough time for our family. It was a lot of stressful conversations, and yeah, we were very happy to get a diagnosis, though. She had Blau syndrome, which is an autoinflammatory disease that causes pain in her joints, and it threatens vision and a lot more complications. She passed away about 5 years ago due to a complication that was missed by her medical team called MAS. The disease wasn't supposed to be fatal, so it was a shock to our family to have that happen. But that experience has led me to traveling the world, talking at conferences, and advocating for rare diseases and how to prevent deaths like those in the future. So that's at least a bit of a silver lining, that maybe I'll be able to help another family. So me and my sister had a lot of fun times. Something that we would do quite often is go downstairs in my room, hide under my bed, and play games on our iPads when we weren't supposed to. And yeah, so thank you so
Thank
much.
Thanks, Felix, for sharing all of that with us. We really appreciate it. Aili, we'll head it over to you.
Hi, I'm Aili. I am 19 and I'm a freshman in college. My family unit is made up of me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. My sister is 12 and she was diagnosed with Wilms tumor, which is a pediatric kidney cancer when she was 8, which was in the middle of the pandemic. And so she was 8 at her time of first diagnosis, and then she relapsed again at age 11 during my senior year of high school. And it's tricky after the relapse. We were living in sort of a gray area because we don't know if it will come back and if anything is possible if it does, which is a little bit scary. But my sister and I, we do a lot of weird things together, but one of my favorite things is when my parents aren't around for dinner, which doesn't happen very often, but we always get super excited to make mac and cheese together and watch TV during dinner, which we're not usually allowed to do. So we spend a lot of time talking about how it's better than normal dinner, which is always fun. And something about me myself that I wanted to share because I am a person separate from my family as well is that I'm a painter. My favorite thing to paint is people, like my family members and my friends, and especially from live models because I really enjoy like the human intimacy and connection aspect of that. And I'm in a combined degree program at my college where I'm receiving both a BA and a BFA. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Yasmin, we'll throw it over to you.
Hi, as she said, I'm Yasmin Faruqi, and I am a oldest sibling of two younger sisters. One of whom, which is I wanted to say 12, but she just turned 13. Soraya, who is my medically complex sibling, and then my youngest sister, Lena, and my mom and dad. And my sister has an undiagnosed progressive disease, similar to like you can think of pediatric ALS. Um, that's been like a very difficult thing for my family. And I have been working with advocacy programs through Cincinnati Children's and uh, obviously CPN as well. And I am, outside of being a big advocate for both siblings and people with disabilities, I am a swimmer and I also do a lot of art. So, and probably one of my favorite memories I have with my sister, which is very, very specific. Whenever it would thunderstorm when I was little, when my sister still had the capacity to walk, like actually like without getting tired, we would run in thunderstorms all around our neighborhood and splash ourselves to the point where like we were absolutely soaked. But that's probably one of my best memories I have with my sister.
Thank you, Yasmin. I thought we'd begin this evening. I'm going to hope that I share my screen correctly. And sometimes I'm a little technology challenged. But we had asked at Courageous Parents Network parents to respond to if you could answer the question, what do you worry about with your other children, with the siblings, in one word? What would your responses be? And I'm going to attempt to share with you. Oh, let me see if I can make this full screen. Um, a list of the words that we got in response. And I've asked each of our siblings here tonight to go ahead and choose the word that they felt they wanted to respond to in some way. And so, Yasmin, why don't we start with you since we ended with you during the introductions? Tell us your word and then your response, if you might, please.
Um,
Uh-oh, did Yasmin freeze?
because
Uh-oh, Yasmin, I think you're freezing.
So we didn't hear you.
We didn't hear you, honey, because I think you're freezing.
oh, sorry. Uh, I'm not on mute, so we're good. The word that I picked is acceptance because it is so hard to accept that life isn't going to be the same. For me, it wasn't a diagnosis, but simply the fact that when my sister was born, she was not like anybody else, and there still is no diagnosis for that. And so that in itself is important to accept or to work on accepting, and that's why acceptance is so important. And accepting that as a this is advice for parents, but like as a parent, you also have to accept that the care that one child needs may not be the same as another child, but that doesn't mean that you're not necessarily, still being equal. Just because it's not the same amount doesn't mean it's not equal in how much you love them. And for me, it was accepting the fact that I'm going to lose my sister. Like that was, I still am working on that. I'm in therapy for a reason. Um, but acceptance really is a huge, huge piece of being both a caregiver, a parent, or a sibling. That's the only way you can move forward because trying to bury it and pretending it's not happening is just going to make things worse.
Thanks, Yasmin. How about you? Who do we start with? Did we start with Felix? So, Aili, I'll throw it over to you then, because I think we'll go in reverse order.
Okay, I would like to talk about attention, and not because I necessarily felt like I had a lack of it, just sort of a different kind. I think that my relationship with my parents deteriorated a little bit after the diagnosis and with everything else that was going on. And I definitely feel that there's a lot of disconnect between us. And so I think that, which is partially my fault, I feel like I was pretty shut down and like not super receptive to spending time with the family after everything that happened. And I wasn't able to, control some of my more unpleasant moods and reactions, which is fair because I was a kid. But I just think that like anything you can do to maintain the relationship with your non-sick child is really important. And like for instance, sometimes my mom and I will try to do things together that we say have nothing to do with cancer, and that's usually some of the best time that we spend together. So I think just it's so difficult to separate things once you're in the mix, but trying to remember that your other kid is still a kid and needs attention and support like normal kids do is important.
Thank you. How about you, Felix? What word did you resonate with you?
I picked resilience. That has been a very powerful thing for me. It's a trait that is really hard to develop, but once you can, it can lead to you being able to overcome lots of challenges that otherwise would lead to you just giving up. And so, in my experience, I've used resilience so much throughout my life, and if I didn't have the resilience I had, I don't think I would have made it this far. So I think I would have given up. Yeah, life would be a lot different for me. And so Lexi has taught me resilience like I don't think I would have been able to get otherwise. So that has been an incredibly powerful thing for me.
Thank you, Felix. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I know that you probably each could speak to all of these words, and we don't have time for that tonight, but I really appreciate you calling out the ones that you felt you could speak best to, because I think that that's really important for our audience here to hear too as well. Okay. Thank you. Wendy, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so I wanted to open up our discussion. In looking at those words, we can see that there's words that sort of demonstrate the worries that parents have. And so there's clearly it's on parents' minds, like what are the challenges that siblings face? And so as siblings, what are some of the challenges that you want to start out by talking about that are important for people to think about when we're thinking about siblings? And I will start with Yasmin.
What I think is, can you repeat the question one more time? Because you cut out for part of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
so
okay.
we're all aware that there are many challenges to being a sibling in these situations. What are some of the things that you want to highlight for people to hear about in terms of challenges to think about that siblings are facing?
Yeah, absolutely.
The hard parts.
The hard parts, yeah. There's a whole list. One of the most important things to remember is just because you have one kid who is not necessarily typical, whether it be the disease they had or some other thing that makes them neurodivergent or anything like that, it's really important to remember that that kid may take up a lot of your time, but it is really, really important to remember that just because your other kid is like neurotypical, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're okay with life simply because they don't have a medical condition. Like for me and my family, it took my parents a while, but eventually they've talked with me about it and we've tried to figure out a way to make sure I still feel heard. It's really important to make sure that your kid feels heard because having a sibling with either a disability, a medical condition, whatever it is, that can be isolating as it is in school, in the workplace. I mean, like I'm not old enough to work yet, but same idea as like if I was in school. Um, that's isolating enough as it is. So making sure that your kid feels heard and seen at home too is really, really important. And whether that's check-ins, whether that's like setting aside extra time for them, it's really important for them to feel that they are still cared for, even if it's in a different way, like just as much as their like neurodivergent or like special needs counterpart sibling.
Thank you, Yasmin. How about you, Felix? What are some of the hard parts, the challenges that you want to address?
I think the biggest challenge for me was knowing that there wasn't really anything I could do to make Lexi feel better. It was very hard for me to get over the fact that I couldn't fix her, and that was always something that I struggled with because I was someone that was very into fixing things and making people feel better. And knowing that that was one thing that I couldn't fix and I couldn't change, that was very hard for me to deal with.
Thank you. How about you, Aili?
I think that it's really important to recognize that different people process things in different ways. I definitely struggled a lot with my mom, especially because she and I have very different processing styles, and she would be very upset about something that happened in one way, and I would be very upset, but I wouldn't the way that I do things, I compartmentalize and I keep things very like deep down within me, and she's super vocal about them, and sometimes it came off that I didn't care so much, which I understand that it could look that way, but it wasn't really the case. So I think it's really important to recognize that not everyone is gonna like approach the same situation the different way or look the same during the same situation, and just sort of being respectful and open to like helping everyone process in their own way instead of being like, this is the one way that we all have to look at this one thing."
While we're talking about parents, I'm wondering what are some of the things that along the way that um, parents have done for you to like help address some of these needs you're talking about. You're talking about needing to be seen, needing to, having this, like it was very hard to figure out like what you could do in a situation because you had no control. And then having parents like recognize your own emotional response, which might be different. So, what are some things that along the way parents did that felt helpful, felt like pretty supportive? And I will start with Felix.
Yeah, there's a couple things that my parents did that helped me kind of get um, through that experience. One thing was my mom used to take me to a bakery near my school and get like some foods, some treats, usually sweets, because that's what I liked the most as a kid. And that would always make me feel like seen and have like feel like I was getting enough attention. Um, the other thing is it may have taken a while, but just the fact that I didn't really process things the same way. like my parents after Lexi died tried to like get me therapy and stuff that most people would need after, but I didn't really like resonate with therapy, and that wasn't something that really helped me. And after like a couple tries to take me to therapy, my parents recognized that and learned that I think they were taught that there are other ways that people are like handle that like information and experiences that aren't just like that everybody has to do. So after they accepted that, it was a lot easier for me to like process in my own way.
It sounds like a few of you are talking about like not the one size fits all and parents recognizing like what works for you or how you express things. Yasmin, what comes to mind for you in terms of things that parents have done along the way that has felt pretty supportive?
Um, there's a lot of things that my parents have done actually that have made me feel like I was seen and heard. And um, for me, therapy actually did really help. And I've been in therapy for a long time. And I'm open talking about it because therapy is good for you, man. Therapy is very good for you. Um, and another thing my parents have done is when I have feelings specifically about stuff that's going on with my sister, because she's very impulsive. It's a part of her disability. So she'll say things or do things that like are really hurtful, and she doesn't mean any of them. And so, but even when I express my feelings and my parents are validating them, that means a lot to me. When I tell them that something's bothering me and they are willing to listen instead of saying, well, it's not, she can't control, it's not that big of a deal, so you shouldn't be worried about it. Um, so that's another thing. And my parents have started doing this thing where they have specific like date times with each of us. So for me and my sister Soraya, who's the special needs, and then my youngest sister Lena. And that is really nice because we're all so busy. My sister's a dancer, I'm a swimmer, and having that specific time where it can just be I have one-on-one time with both my parents and I can tell them whatever I want to. That is really, really, really nice. So those are just some ideas of and some things.
Thank you, Yasmin. How about you, Aili? Things that, things that parents did that felt pretty supportive and helpful.
My parents have been also they're just very open to talking about everything in my experience. Like they've never I was 15 when my sister was diagnosed, so not super young, but not like super old, but they never really sugarcoated anything. They sort of have always kept me in the loop about everything that was going on and answered all my questions, which I think was super helpful. Like it's important not to like hide things from your kid if they're curious and asking. They've also I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I just feel like I've been a part of the conversation the whole time, as much as I've wanted to, and I don't know, they're constantly like bringing things up and trying to talk through how people are feeling. So I think even just showing that they're like engaged and supportive is super helpful.
Thank you. Um, I was thinking about how a lot of times parents just want to be so supportive, but they're being stretched in a lot of different directions. There's a lot of stress on them too. And sometimes parents don't think about all the other people who can be supportive to siblings, who can step in, other adults in the family, at school, in the medical community. I'm wondering what your experiences are with other people besides your parents who were able to step in or play a role, and that felt pretty helpful to you. Um, so how about you, Felix? Were there people along the way that you can think of that, when your parents were stressed or your parents were, with your sister, played a key role for you?
Well, it wasn't like they were necessarily like trying to help me in that way, but my friends, it was nice to have like some people that I could just go like talk to and hang out with that weren't like constantly like worrying about that and that I could just kind of feel like a normal kid and that I wouldn't have to worry about those kinds of things. They were a great distraction and kind of like helped me get away from like the harsh realities of everyday life. And so it was very helpful to have a good group of friends that were able to like be there for me and that were free a lot of the time so I could talk to.
Just part of your normal kid life. And
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
How about you, Yasmin?
I've actually been very blessed in that I have a lot of extended family members who have stepped up in my life. So my mom has a lot of cousins, and there's a couple of them who have really stepped up, and they live on the West Coast, but they fly out to come see me in the Midwest, and me and my family. And so they've been a huge support. And then my sister, due to her condition, we have a lot of babysitters and like our nanny, because she needs someone with her at all times. And they've become so integrated into my life. I can rely on them more than just about anybody besides my parents. And then I've also been blessed with a lot of really, really good close friends. And they have been super supportive and willing to listen to all things that are going on in my life. And so um, it's like I have a really good central circle of my immediate family, and then I've got a really, really good, like, just circle of good people in my life.
How about you, Aili?
I wanted to say one thing I forgot to say about my parents, and then I will answer the question, which is that
Sure.
they've been so engaged with like my extracurricular interests, like my painting stuff. They've been really, really supportive and like sort of dove into that when I became interested in it. And I think that has been like really, really supportive and really helpful. So I just want to say that. And then well, first of all, my therapist, I love her so much. I do actually have she specializes in helping people with cancer or who have cancer in their lives. So that's been really great if you can get like a specialized therapist, because it's great to not have to like explain what all the medical stuff means, and I can just sort of get into everything else. And I had a really complicated time with friends in high school, but once I sort of found my people, it was really great to have that, not necessarily as like a place to talk about the things that were bothering me, but as again, like Felix was saying, just sort of like a place to get away from it and try to, you know, live my own life and talk to my friends about things that were fun and sort of take a break from everything else that was going on.
So I think that opens up the topic of friends. And, we could spend a lot of time on friends and the different roles they play. And one thing that I think comes up a lot is, um, kids, teenagers, young adults have to decide, like, who do I tell what to? And, how do people my age respond? Like, how do they react and to this situation, which oftentimes is very foreign to them. So I wonder what that experience has been like along the way, including you, Felix, in terms of, what things are like now when you decide, what to tell people about your sister. So maybe I'll start with you, Felix. Like, what has that experience been like along the way?
So all my life, I haven't really been someone who like talks about that like a lot. So for most of the time, I kind of just try to get away with like not telling, like not going like over like a certain amount and like kind of giving like a little bit more information the longer I get to know them. So like when I first meet them, I won't really talk about that like at all. Even if it kind of gets brought up, I kind of like direct the conversation elsewhere. But like the longer I get to know them, the more I kind of start to like talk to like sometimes about those things. Still, I don't really about that often. But the more I know people, the more they start to know about me. But yeah, it's not something that I like to talk to. I know a lot of people do, and
Yeah.
it helps them like get things off their chest. But I'm someone that likes to process things internally, and so I don't really talk about things vocally with other people. But yeah, so it's not something that I will try to like jump at every opportunity to tell people about, but I won't like try to hide that information if yeah.
Got it. Yasmin, how about you? What has that been like in terms of decisions about what to tell friends and how people how people react when you let them in?
So I have a lot of stories actually. There are definitely plenty of people who I've done all the above. I've told everyone everything, and then I've also told, like, as I've gotten older, I've decided to like keep the information to myself unless it's brought up because it's just so much emotional effort um for me to explain everything that's going on in my life. But at the beginning of every school year, my mom sends out an email to all my new teachers letting them know what's going on. And that's not necessarily friends related, but just in general, telling people can just be really, really exhausting. Um, and when it comes to friends, I will keep things very surface level, but then if I like am getting closer with somebody, I have to let them know. And also I have a hard time hiding it because if you come over to my house, if I have a friend over to my house, you're going to see the wheelchair lift. You're going to see the one that's by the stairs. You're going to see my sister's vent. You're going to see her 3 different wheelchairs in the house because that way she can get around because she can't really walk very well. You're going to see all kinds of medical equipment. If you go into my kitchen, we have a rack of syringes that are like drying because my sister needs so many meds. So as much as I'm not very close with them, I don't tell them, but then as they get closer to me, I don't really have a choice. Um, but I try not to give away like the super sensitive information regarding my sister and regarding myself, unless I've gotten really, really close with them. So there's a few people at school that I can count, like I can count all of them on one hand, who know everything about everything. And those are the people I keep very, very close to me. But other than that, people are on a need to know basis otherwise. But that's just how I do it.
And Aili, you're in a different situation because you had the experience of being in high school where, maybe more people knew your family and then now being at college. So what has that been like in terms of navigating how much to tell people?
I tell basically anyone. I don't, I guess it just feels like such a big part of my identity and why I've turned out the person that I am that whenever I try to like, I don't know, like I guess for example, I'm becoming closer friends with this girl who's in my sociology class with me. And like we've hung out a couple times and I keep bringing up stuff like we'll talk about like summer plans and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, like I kind of have a weird time at home." And once you say that, I kind of just feel like at some point I don't make any sense if I don't bring it up. And I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm not insecure about it. It's not something that I have difficulty talking about. So it's just sort of something that I bring up like whenever it makes sense to. But all of my friends know, everyone in high school knows I used to actually like use it as a like I wrote a paper once in high school that I had to read aloud to my class and I like used it as part of it because it felt like a good argument point. I don't know. I sort of I don't know. I like to talk about it. I think it's a big part of my life and it feels important to share if somebody's going to get to know me. I don't know. I don't have any reservations talking about it. I actually prefer to bring it up than not bring it up. But I do find myself in like weird situations where I just won't tell anyone. Like my roommate right now, she and I are like friendly, but we don't hang out outside of the room necessarily. Like there's nothing wrong with her. I don't have any issues with her, but it just hasn't come up. So there are a couple situations where it doesn't come up, but like generally if I call somebody my friend or even like an acquaintance, they know about it. So that's just sort of how I've handled it, but I think it is very different for everybody.
And that's why we have a panel, different experiences for everybody. And maybe different experiences depending on what's going on and who you're with. So one thing that comes up, and it came up in the parent reactions too, someone or more than one parent talked about perfectionism. And we sometimes hear about siblings who, just they are so aware of everything that's going on that they try not to be a problem in their family, or try to just do everything well, so that for a couple of reasons, so that people won't worry about them, or because it's a great thing to focus on other than stress, or because they feel grateful that they have the abilities to do some of the things that maybe are hard for the brother or sister. So I wonder if you've had any of that experience with either um, trying not to be a problem, quote unquote, for other people, or finding yourself with some of those perfectionistic tendencies that might be related to what's been going on. And I think we'll start with Felix. Has that been something that's come up for you at all along the way?
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely one of those people that try to like do stuff so I'm not like a burden to my family. Not because my family like makes it out like that, but it's just something that I've got in my mind that makes me really want to be like as good as I can. So to like take as much trouble off as possible. It probably all started when Lexi was still alive, and my parents were preoccupied with her, and she was taking up a lot of their time, and so I didn't really want to waste their time with like small things, and that made me kind of continue to like try to be as like not as big of a burden as possible. I want to make my like life as easy as I possibly could on my parents. And so that kind of led to more and more perfectionism throughout my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. How about you, Aili?
Most definitely, yeah. Well, so I was a bit older when my sister was diagnosed, so I was sort of in my perfectionism in school already at that point. Like I've always been very interested in, getting good grades and whatnot, but I think that the burden thing really came into play after the diagnosis. And then I actually want to focus this question, I think, on now that I'm in college, because I think that's a perspective I can provide that's more unique. So this might be like a less conventional version of the concept of perfectionism, but when I got into college, my parents talked a lot about the idea that I was like the one to escape our situation, quote unquote. Like I got to leave, I got to get out, which is a complicated statement and not necessarily fair because I obviously feel impacted by our experience every day, and it's not like it doesn't feel like I've left it behind. It feels like it's shadowing me all the time. So, but I ultimately it sort of felt a lot of pressure to have just the absolute best time and make the most out of every single thing because I'm the only person who, quote unquote, like gets to go and gets to like get out. And that's led to some burnout for me. Obviously, I'm having like a really wonderful time and I'm so grateful to be here, but I've also experienced like a few depressive episodes in the past couple months that have been like exacerbated by feelings that since I've escaped, I'm supposed to finally feel like happy and perfect, which is not the reality. So I think that's my version of it.
Thank you. That's a really interesting facet of it, right? Feeling like I should be so happy. Um, how about you, Yasmin?
Not gonna lie, when you described all the things, I was like, are you just holding up a mirror to me at this point? Because that is me in a nutshell. Um, I think it's fair to say I am um very academic focused. And ever since my sister's condition has gotten worse, the last thing that I have ever wanted to do is add more to my parents' plate. So like I felt awful because like I have ADHD. And so when I got diagnosed with that, and then I added more things for my parents to do, I didn't feel bad that I got diagnosed. I just felt bad that I had to have more things for my parents to worry about. So I do my best. I take incredibly challenging classes. I am 2 years ahead of my peers in math, and I am constantly aiming for pure perfection because I feel if I don't reach that perfection, that I am not enough. And my parents have like repeatedly told me that I need to stop taking AP classes and that I need to like stop taking so many. So this is like completely self-inflicted. Um, but that's just something I do. I guess it's kind of a way to cope because this sounds bad, but if I'm so focused on work, I can't focus on my life, and then therefore I function. But that's the only way I feel I can function is if I'm delving myself into classwork and homework rather than focusing on my life. Because if I keep busy, then I can't stop and think. So, and just as a disclaimer, like my parents have told me not to do this. This is not very good, and I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But that is my experience with perfectionism. And it is a very common thing, especially since I am an oldest sibling. So that
The
comes with another thing.
hardest
So I
thing.
set the example for my youngest sister, and even for Soraya, I set an example for her. And so I feel if I'm not perfect, then I'm not a good enough example for either of them, and that would not feel very good for me.
I think that brings up again a couple things that are would be great to talk about. One is that it can be a coping strategy, as you mentioned, Yasmin, like being able to focus on school or grades. What along the way have you all felt have been like really healthy, good coping strategies for you when you're feeling strong emotions related to what you've been going through on a daily basis? Um, and I'll start with Aili. What are some of your go-to coping strategies that just really help when there's a lot of stress or emotions?
Um, well, healthy coping strategies. Um, Definitely the art. I didn't discover that until a bit later, actually. I started painting in like beginning of my junior year of high school, and it instantly turned into something that I like unlocked in myself, I guess. And I've definitely found an outlet in that. My whole like senior AP painting portfolio was about like my feelings surrounding like my own development, which is obviously very tied to my sister's condition. So I definitely use my painting as an outlet quite often. I think creative outlets in general, like I actually am very interested in fashion, and I found like having a project to focus on, like I really to sew my own clothing, is great because it gives you a distraction that isn't, doesn't isn't damaging you necessarily at the same time. Because I also have done the academic rigor thing, and I will say that it feels a lot worse than like sewing a shirt. Um, I listen to a lot of music. And I think that spending time with my friends and the people that I care about is always helpful.
Yasmin, how about you? What's been like really great ways to cope with things for you?
My favorite ways to cope is actually very similar to Eileen's. I am an artist. I love just sitting and painting or drawing or making jewelry. I craft all the time. Um, that that's one thing. Uh, Another thing is I also have a hard time expressing emotions. I don't like feeling. Feeling feels like a nuisance to me sometimes. That's a part of the perfectionism. Because I'm like, this is hindering me from doing my homework. I don't like this. Um, to get back to the acceptance thing, um, I'm working on skills with a therapist, or my therapist, and like remembering to pause and be mindful. That's another really big thing. Is that when I'm in like a heightened state of emotion, my therapist likes to say that she's given me this analogy for years. There's like two sides of the brain. There's the emotional and the illogical. And sometimes your logical brain takes over and you're like, I have to do this, I have to do this. But that's not good if you're not like using your emotions. And if you're only using your emotions, that can obviously get out of hand very fast. So there's a spot in between, just called wise mind. So I try to access my wise mind whenever I'm in a really heightened state. Um, so I have to remember that just because my emotions feel really big right now doesn't necessarily mean that everything's the end of the world.
Great. Thank you. How about you, Felix? And it's up to you. You can talk about what helped you with emotions in the midst of your sister dealing with her condition and after you lost her. Either one of those. What has been helpful for you in terms of coping?
Well, the things that Aili and Yasmin said are both things that I've really enjoyed doing. So obviously, as I said, friends and family are probably the main thing that I've used to cope and deal with that both before and after Lexi passed away. They are just such a good like distraction and way to like get away from like your realities. I know I'm saying it. I know I'm saying this again, but it's just so true to me that feel like it's worth like stating again. But another thing is like, creativity. So that could be like art. I've like that. Writing for some people. There's so many different like outlets like creativity that are so also incredibly helpful. And then music again. I love listening to music, and it's another way that can like change your feeling. 'Cause music is like a very incredible um thing. It can like like change your emotions, and it's amazing to help you cope with that kind of stuff.
Thank you all for that. I'm very mindful that we have a lot of people on the Zoom who actually work with kids with medical conditions, who may be working, who work, they said in the chat, they work in hospitals, they do home-based care, they are working with the child with the diagnosis. And they are here because they're interested in siblings and how they can help siblings. So what advice would you have for people who are actually working with the child with the medical condition about how can they help siblings? Like, what are the ways that you can think of that they can show their support or be mindful of that experience? I will, and Aili, we'll go with you first.
Could you repeat the question? My Wi-Fi.
Oh,
glitched.
sorry. Yeah, so we have a lot of people who provide care for kids with medical conditions, but they're here because they're interested in siblings. So what advice would you have for them, the ones who are actually caring for kids with the medical diagnosis? How can they be helpful to siblings or mindful of sibling needs in their work?
That is a big question.
You can pass it to someone else if you want to think about it.
I mean, I guess I have like some ideas. They're just maybe a little bit broad. I think that obviously the priority of whoever is working with children with medical conditions is to work with the children with the medical conditions. But I think even just having like literature for the parents or like asking the parents like how is your other kid doing? Like I know that um my parents like shared with my sister's oncologist where I ended up committing to college and like other achievements that I've had in high school and just sort of making the sibling feel more integrated into the rest of the family unit in any way like that is probably helpful or has been helpful for me. Because or I guess sorry, I sounded like I was done and then I wasn't. But I wanted to elaborate that like I don't know, I felt very disconnected from my family during the whole treatment process. So that was a way that I felt a little bit more integrated.
Thank you. And parents can sometimes say that's helpful to have a nurse or doctor be like, how are your other kids doing? Because they're like, oh, can I talk about them too? Yasmin, do you have any thoughts about this, about how like people who maybe are there to interact with your sister, how they can be helpful for the siblings?
I have a couple of ideas. If we're talking in like a home setting, uh, or just like an appointment, um, try to interact with, obviously, if the child with a medical condition is there to get help or get treatment, it's important that they come first. But interacting with, of course, the parents, but then also not making the sibling feeling that they're just like a statue just sitting there. Um, like interacting with them too is very good, and appreciating the fact that they probably have also, even if it's not medical knowledge, just knowledge about their sibling that you will eventually have to learn that they already know because it's their sibling, their brother or sister. And in terms of like therapies and like therapists, um, what I helped with at Cincinnati Children's is advocating for a space for siblings who are frequent visitors. Because when I was younger, it was a like 3 hour long like therapy session, was it like a physical and feeding therapy, and I would sit in a dark room alone at the age of like 3 4, and I would just sit and play with like toys that were in there by myself for hours, and that was not very fun because I was sitting there alone. So um advocating for spaces that are a little bit more entertaining. We've got like a sibling center at Cincinnati Children's now that I helped advocate for, and I was there at the opening, and it makes me so happy that that's going to be there. But um, yeah, just even if it's whether it's interacting with the siblings in some way, making them feel included, or if it's a therapy setting, then having a space, whether if you have one, and that's okay, or if you don't have one, that's okay. But maybe advocating for one, because I feel like that would have made things a lot easier for me when I was very little if I had like a space like that.
Thank you. Felix, were there things along the way that you observed or ideas you have about what people can do?
Yeah, they're mostly, I think, keeping kids entertained with like toys and like just talking with them. It's very important that they aren't feeling like they are just doing nothing and like bored in at those times because they can often be very long appointments. Another thing is keeping siblings updated and like having conversations with them if they're curious. Don't like unload all of the things if they aren't wanting to, but if they're asking questions and if they're curious, then don't just like dismiss their questions, but like help them understand, talk with them, and like be kind of open to their ideas because they also know their siblings well. And so if they're like suggesting something that could like that you could do to like help like the medically complex sibling, that kind of be open to their suggestions, and it also makes them feel like heard and that they're actually doing something and they aren't just like doing nothing. That's also very helpful.
Thank you. That was a great set of recommendations. Jennifer, how are we with time?
I think we have time for one more question, Wendy.
Okay.
And actually, I was wondering if I could field one.
Sure.
Curious about this. And is how when in the course of your parents' care for your sibling, how much do you feel like they've included you in decisions about that care? And did you want to be in a position where you wanted to be included in those decisions? So Yasmin, I'm going to start with you.
That's a very good question. So, this is actually a very good question because I have two very good examples of that. I am the kind of person where I want to know everything. If there's something new about my sister's healthcare that they found out an appointment, I know 3 hours later when I get home from school. My youngest sister, however, she's 10. She's on a very need to know basis, and that's of her own choice. She does not want to know things. And so when we have palliative care meetings, sometimes she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to know things. But I feel like that's really important is to understand that I think Felix mentioned this earlier, but like understanding that sometimes your kids want to know, sometimes they don't. So my parents are do a really good job of telling me, but then also not telling my sister. Um, and in terms of decision making, my parents actually, when I was younger, they didn't, but as I've gotten older and as my sister's gotten worse, they've really started to understand that again, this all goes back to like the acceptance and being heard. Um, I do feel very hurt in my house, where if there's something going on or if there's a appointment happening or a surgery coming up and it's something that involves me, my parents tell me about it way beforehand. And then they're like, if it's something that's like not very pleasant or something that I can't avoid, they're like, what can we do to make it up to you? Or what can we do to help lighten this? And that's really, really nice.
Thanks. How about you, Felix?
Well, in my opinion, I also agree with what Yasmin said. It is very important to like know that there are more than two kinds of people. It's not that they'll definitely want to know everything about it, because a lot of the times it can them feel worse knowing everything, but a lot of the times they also do want to be engaged in those conversations and be in the decision making process. And then again, sometimes it's like um they can have this same feelings like at different times. So like sometimes they might want to be engaged in the decision making process, and they want to be a part of all of the conversations. And then maybe the same person like a day later might want to have nothing to do with that. It's like it's something that can go up and down. So it's definitely helpful to ask them for their opinion and see if they want to be part or not, because it's not something that you can like always know if they would want to or not want to. So it's definitely important to get their opinion, because it's yeah.
Thanks, Felix. Aili, what about you?
I think that my parents have also been very receptive to like what I want to know, which is usually everything. And also the fact that I'm so much older than my sister sort of puts me in a more adult position in the family unit. We are 7 years apart, so I sort of just end up, being old enough to know certain things that maybe she doesn't or other people don't. But like I want to know mostly everything, but my parents have also been sort of receptive to talking about, like, for instance, a lot of times she has scans every 3 months and like they're deeply stressful because it's sort of a life or death situation at this point. And so they'll be in the hospital for a whole day, and I've been with them once, I think, but usually I'm not with them. And like oftentimes I'm in class and it's on a Wednesday and I have 4 college classes and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in lecture. And I also am looking at the messages of what's going on, and it gets really overwhelming. So they've been super, I guess, happy to discuss like how can we impart the information about what is going on to you in a way that makes sense for, your life, because you're out there doing other things right now. So I think that's been super great.
Thank you. I want to just thank all of you. We're coming up against the hour, and I really want to be respectful of Yasmin and Felix and Aili, who are all at the end of their school year and coping with finals and end of school activities and research papers and all of the things that come along with all of that. I did want to just, I don't know if the three of you are reading the chat, but there are so many compliments for your willingness to be honest tonight, your willingness to show the vulnerability that comes along with your own experience, and just how impactful that's been for everybody here. So I hope you feel very appreciated by I think it's at one point we had over 79, we had 79 people here listening to all that you guys have to say and contribute to help caregivers, whether that be the parent or a clinician helping kids learn more and do more. So I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm so thankful for everyone also who's attended tonight, and you will, again, I will repeat this, you will receive a follow-up email from us, which will include a recording of this session and likely a recording of each of the other 2 sibling sessions that we've done, as well as the many sibling resources that we have on Courageous Parents Network, including Felix and Aili and Yasmin writing to process a whole unit with a bunch of siblings talking about how they've used writing. Or my daughter is very artistic. You can kind of see her paint her thing in the background there in the back, and processed a lot through art. So you can listen to her on CPN and to learn more about the sibling experience. And Wendy, of course, thank you so very much for bringing your guidance here tonight and your perspective, and for the learning that we got to do with you in January. ahead of this session. It's been so very helpful.